Thanks for tuning in and listening, and today's show is more of healing the density, but from a different perspective. I know that many people make those New Year's resolutions to lose weight, tighten up that tighten up the tummy, tone the arms, drop that last 10 that they put on whenever, drop the 5 from the holiday season. This is the time. This is the year. Jim, as a certified personal trainer with decades in the fitness industry, I know that the gyms get the biggest influx, and we expect the boost in membership in the first quarter of the year, and then that drops off usually as people don't meet their goals. So I know that, as I said in the first show, after the first of the year, we don't, me being myself and many of the people, my colleagues and my clients and my friends, don't make resolutions anymore. It's just the way that we live. And so we want to approach it from that perspective. What we're talking about today is a way to just live at the level of your dreams, being okay with where you are now, being motivated because you have a desire to have more for yourself, and just choosing it. So the mental back and forth and the guilt and the shame when you feel, or you feel like you feel, or that you even judge that you feel if you eat a certain something, or you don't get to the gym, or you don't have what's known as a successful meeting, and you don't have what's known as a successful outcome in that project, or you don't have that financial return. All of that noise, all of that mental noise full of judgments and conclusions that our mind will make turned in on ourselves is just gone. And if it's still there, it's not listened to with that same elevated level of, oh my God, where there's emotional reaction in the body and attachment to the thoughts, and listening to the thoughts and judging ourselves because the thoughts are doing that. We are not our minds. We are a mind, body, spirit trinity, and that's the focus of today's show, talking about why do people have extra weight on their bodies. Yes, I could go into, and I have in other shows when talking about the chakras, especially the eating addictions behind the mind-body connection, and what is in each of the chakras. When we eat certain kinds of food or have certain kinds of food addictions, they're indicative of a certain chakra being deficient or excessive, meaning out of balance. So I've talked about this topic before a bit, but I've never gone into why do people pack on weight. And it's a question that I've been asking actually for a good couple of decades. So that's what we're going to do today. Suggestions for diet, exercises is not the focus today. You get that enough elsewhere, and it really will work for one person, does not work for another, as some of the more frustrated people out there know with dieting and exercising. It's not going to be about calorie counting. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be a very irregular show for the content that's in it about what might be having you keep the weight on your body. And this could be information that does actually finally jar it loose. Something will I see it when I work with clients. I've had people lose weight who have never lost weight before, who have spent their entire lives identifying themselves as heavy, overweight, fat, obese. And it's just not able to be linked to in their mind anymore, and the weight drops off. With effort, it doesn't just fall off. I mean, there is effort, but we have weight on ourselves for a purpose when we have extra weight. And we could say, hey, yeah, it's just because I ate more at the holiday season. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who has always kept extra padding around their tummy, especially. I'm not even necessarily talking about inner thighs that need to get toned a little bit more. I'm talking about extra poundage, 10 pounds, padding and up throughout your life. You know who I'm talking to. And so what that bulk does is it provides a buffer. And what that buffer is for is what we're going to be talking about. When I was at a seminar, actually it was a Carolyn Mays seminar. She's one of the pioneers in intuitive energy medicine and one of my lead teachers starting about 20 years ago. I was at a seminar and I looked around, and the majority of people in the audience, it was in a double banquet hall in a hotel, so there was a couple of hundred. The majority of the people in the audience were women. And at that time, that wasn't surprising. Nowadays, that's definitely changed. And the majority of the women were overweight, and the majority of them were in purple. And I was wondering, what is up with that? Why are people seeking understanding from a metaphysical space? This is in Florida at the time. Why are they carrying so much extra weight? Because I've always been an exerciser my entire life. I've always done the gym, cardio, running, swimming, biking, snow skiing, everything. And in my body, I love being in my body. I love exercising. I love feeling my body after it exercises. So what else? And I don't. I thought that's what the show is about. It is. A lot of the reason why extra weight will be kept on a body is to be grounded in the body, because the person doesn't really want to be in the body. And that is not at the conscious level. It's not like you walk around on a day-to-day basis thinking, wow, I hate being in my body. Wow, I hate being here. What it is instead is it's an overall general resistance to life that can be more pronounced in some than others. But it's a person who says no a lot. It's a person who stays shut down to new opportunities a lot. It's a person who may say, oh, my darn body, or oh, my darn back, or oh, my legs hurt again, or oh, I can't because my body won't do it, or oh, my body hurts, or oh, life is so hard, or oh, people are so mean, or oh, people are so difficult, or oh, this world is full of so much pain and suffering. Those kinds of concepts expressed from someone's mouth, while they come at a conscious level, obviously because you're saying them, what they're rooted in is an unconscious and subconscious resistance to being in the body. I heard somebody say something along the lines of what I'm saying about, I don't know how many years ago, within the last decade, and it struck me. I had a reaction to it. And any time we have a reaction, there's something in it of truth for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't react. So I remember the person saying, we're not a body that has a soul. We're a soul that has a body. And so if we think of that, and we're using this body temporarily for the 120 years it's designed for, or however many years we're on this planet in this body, then that means that the soul comes from somewhere, and it gets put into the body. We won't talk about that. When is it conception? Is it, at 1 month? When does the soul enter the fetus? The soul is in the body. Let's leave it at that. And so that means the soul, where does it come from? Well, we could talk about that. We won't. The soul comes from somewhere. Let's leave it at that. So what was put forth that I had a reaction to was that a majority of people are dealing with a basic separation anxiety, meaning a separation from home, a separation from source, a separation from the light, a separation from where there's unconditional love and acceptance. And going with the paradigm and the belief in reincarnation, without discussing it right now, without going into the science behind it, as I've done in other shows, just stay with the idea of the possibility, if you're not already believing in we have more than one life, just let it dangle there. And if we do have more than one life, or if we don't, then what we're talking about right now is a soul that possibly has a belief in it. If it's had other lifetimes that have been more suffering than enjoyable, it's going to have a resistance and a conclusion at an unconscious level. It's tough down there. And so what this person was saying was that we come from source, and we're connected to that source when we're out of our bodies. And in yoga, the meaning of yoga is to yoke with the divinity within ourselves, and then therefore divinity that's at the collective level, what in the West we term as God, and that each of us has that spark of God in us, or that spark of the divine in us, and then there's a collective where we're all connected. And that separation from that source of unconditional love and acceptance is what a lot of people are in resistance to when they come into body. It could also be resistance to being in the body because life is concluded to be pain and suffering. So there's an overall desire then, a pattern that forms from just that unconscious belief, and it's a huge, huge belief that being connected to God is better, that being in the body is worse. Connected to God equals love and good feelings. Connected to body means pain, and connected to humans and suffering. So what we might see is somebody who is in their head a lot. They're highly intellectual. They like learning. They like mental activity. They like intellectual debate. They might be into the metaphysical world. They might be talking to angels. They might be connecting with angels. They might be mediums. They might be psychics. They might be preachers. They might be ministers. They might be computer geeks. They might be people connected to the intellectual world. Of all of there is the seventh and the sixth chakra, and that's the head. The top of the head, the crown chakra, is chakra 7. Chakra 6 is in between the eyes, and that's known as the sixth eye, or the sixth chakra, the third eye, and that's our intuition. And when each of those go out of balance, it's because we're not using our intellect properly balanced. Left brain, I'm going to go off a little bit here so you can better appreciate what I'm talking about. Left brain is known to be the logical, rational, concrete, sequential, organizing, structuring brain. Right brain is where we access the more abstract. Art comes from there, and then also it's been studied by neuroscience at this point, too. The right brain gets more activated and has more associations happening in an advanced meditator. So when somebody is also doing mediumistic activity, like they're working to give psychic readings, or they're working to have somebody who's died, their soul or spirit come in, I'm not going to get hung up on whether it's a soul or a spirit, and talk to the alive person that's paying the medium in front of them. Please connect me to my dad. I miss him so much. Please connect me to my ex-wife, or my wife who's died of cancer last year. I miss her and I want to know she's okay. That's the most common thing I've experienced, is I want to know he or she's okay. So people will pay money to go to a medium, and what that medium is doing is they're connecting up through their right brain with that opening that allows them to get access to the spiritual realm. If we are heavily intellectual, heavily analytical, and we like to chew on intellectual debates, and we talk a lot about intellectual stuff, and we don't necessarily go anywhere with it or do anything with the information, that's being heavily left brain. Heavily right brain, the more metaphysically inclined people, with the psychics, the people who like to talk to the angels, the people who like to reside up in that realm and go to a lot of seminars that are metaphysical and stay with kind of gurus who will connect them because of feelings like they can't connect in themselves. But being either of these ways means that there is an enjoyment of going up and out, going up into my mind, being in my mind, and going out. You could also nowadays envision that as being on the computer and going out and into the virtual world. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I can feel a couple of you guys some of you guys are getting it. It's kind of funny how the internet is very much similar to our localized consciousness and then the bigger consciousness, the collective. So, if we're resisting being in our body, then that's going to take us out of our root chakra. It's going to take us up into our sixth and seventh chakras, the chakras of the head. And it's going to, when we're out of our root chakra, potentially cause issues with the hips, the knees, the feet, and walking. When we're up in our head more and we want to escape being in this world or in our body because we have that basic belief. I started out the radio show saying that we know that or believe that based on past lives, past experiences, or just separation anxiety, that life in the body and on the earth plane is painful, then we might also not be grounded in the second chakra. And then that's also going to be leading to hip, sacral, back issues. Sciatica gets involved here. And guess what else gets involved here? money issues. Going to the chakra system from somebody who really, when you Google, if you're interested right now and you're Googling chakras, you're going to most likely get overwhelmed because there's so much conflicting information over there. You might want to just stay with one teacher about the chakra system to start with. And that could be going back to last year's shows I have about the chakra system. One of the teachers that I have used a lot is Anodea Judith, and hopefully she's going to be on the show this year. So the chakra system is a science. And in fact, in my book I mention it, and guess what? It gets half a page because it's that big. So I'm having a hawk fly over my head right now carrying nesting material. Oh, it's brilliant. Every show almost, you guys can hear me talking about an animal that flies overhead. I remember interviewing Dane here on the first time of the two times I interviewed him and exclaiming how there was a red-tailed hawk flying overhead. Okay, so staying with the idea now, we're not going to ground in our body into the first and second chakra. And the way instead we're going to ground is with extra weight. There's the key right there. If we're in resistance to being in the body, then we're going to ground ourselves, because we do need to, we know that, with extra weight. Another aspect of being heavy is if we are empathic, if we're sensitive to others' feelings and emotions. And a lot of people who would be listening to this radio show would tend to be that way. If people say we're a people person, we're really good with people, if we're like in an HR role, or we're that friend that constantly counsels the friends that everybody always looks to for advice, or that person in the family, then we might have empathic wiring, which means that the sensors in the belly are going to be picking up on what others in the environment feel. So there's sensors in the lower abdomen, and we have sensors in the higher abdomen. And they're picking up on what is going on in the environment. In fact, that's primarily what the third chakra, not primarily, it's somewhat what the third chakra does, and it's somewhat what the second chakra does. The second chakra is dedicated to feelings, and the belief there, or the right there, is, do I have the right to feel the way I feel? And then the third chakra is connecting to the environment. So it's the whole abdominal region that's involved with sensing out the environment that we're in. Yeah. So if we're empathic, if we're inclined to be caring, loving people, and not to say that that everybody isn't, but if there's in my experience in the classroom, we were trained with the Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory. There's 7 intelligences. Some students and people learn better with bodily processes, so they're kinesthetic learners. Some people learn better with audio-visual. Some people learn better with doing things hands-on. And so there's another intelligence that is more the psychic intelligence and the intuitive intelligence and the empathic intelligence. I found many students to be those three combined, and many of my adult clients to be that way. And when you are that way, when you're good with people, you tend to be really empathic, so you're picking up more from the environment. And if you are and you can't handle it, if it's overwhelming to you, if you don't know what to do with the data, which is frequently what happens, because when we're empathic, that also means we care about people. When we care about people, that also means our heart is open. When our heart is open, that also means we let people in. When we do this pattern, it's also possible, and quite likely, I have found in my years of working with people, that we're letting people in too much. The challenge there then is, how do I draw boundaries and let people in only at a certain level that is good for my health and well-being, so that I can still maintain my own sense of self. Yeah. Huge. So if we feel like we don't have the ability to draw boundaries with other people, meaning if we're one of the people who say yes all the time and we don't know how to say no, or we have a difficult time saying no when people ask us to do stuff, or we take on those extra tasks, or people need us, then we're going to tend to be of this nature. We're going to tend to carry the extra weight because the extra weight's going to help us define the boundaries and give us the buffer between ourselves and others. Yeah. So that's two of the major reasons why I have found it seems like people pack on extra weight. Okay, Alison. So what do we do about that? Well, one of the things that can be done is to start working with the chakras. The best thing that can be done is to have this understanding you've just gotten today. When I say start working with the chakras, you can consult me. I'll help you. It'll probably take you less time if you were to do that than if you were to go on your own, quite frankly. Another thing you can do is start doing abdominal exercises. As much as you think, oh my God, are you kidding me, Alison? I'll never do that. In fact, yes, you can. Because strengthening the abdominal region is one of the number one ways to draw boundaries. And that doesn't mean necessarily right now, if you're sitting there with 30 extra pounds, getting a six-pack abdomen. It doesn't mean all of a sudden becoming a gym goer. It doesn't mean that. Check out Pilates and yoga. Check out Pilates because it's a gentle way to go about strengthening the core. Pilates strength, and I teach Pilates, and you can contact me. A lot of the times, in fact, when my clients come to me for weight loss, this is exactly what I'm doing with them, what I'm doing with you today on the show. We start with looking at the typical beliefs that lead to extra weight, and then we look at their own personal history. I assess their chakras and see what's balanced, what's weak, what's deficient, what's excessive, and we go from there. And we start talking about, for the third and second chakra, to draw boundaries. How do you get stronger there? By the abdominal exercises. And I don't mean crunches because, remember, I'm a personal trainer, certified, as well as a yoga teacher, as well as I've done Pilates for 10 years, approximately. I don't remember right now off the top of my head. And Pilates is core strengthening. It's the deep core. Crunches in the gym are the superficial musculature of the abdominal region. That's how they get the six packs, because that's the top surface of muscles in the abdomen. And so that's why it looks like a six-pack, because they're dealing with the top layer of muscles, and that's what we see. The deep core musculature in the abdominal region is what Pilates and yoga both hit. I know that my yoga classes are always focused on the core. So, for example, one of the ways to work with yoga and the chakras is look up poses. I'll tell you a few right now. Cobra is really good for first, second, and third chakras. If you don't like to ground in your body, if you have a difficult time, another symptom that I haven't mentioned, by the way, is spaciness. Easily distracted, ADD, ADHD, indigo children, crystal children, hyper kids is what we used to call them before the labeling, right? So that's an excess of energy staying trapped up at the head, not able to make it down to the rest of the body. So the energy doesn't distribute outward throughout, and like a tree doesn't get, you know how a tree takes in the nutrients from the soil, where it's hopefully there are still nutrients remaining in the soil, in the water, up through its roots, up to its trunk. We're the same way. We have distribution networks of vital life force energy, or chi in the Chinese culture, prana in the Hindu culture with the yoga world, and it gets distributed out throughout the body, the chakras being the main wheels that turn the energy out to the limbs. So if at the head level, we're at the crown chakra, the top of the head, the sixth chakra in between the eyebrows, which is also known as the third eye, if we have a lot of energy going on there because that's where we like to reside, and we don't distribute it down and out through the body, then we're going to be really hyper mentally. Right. The mind-body connection, that's what we're talking about. And that is what is missing in our society when it comes to understanding what we deal with at the physical level. It's what my book goes into is missing, and it points out how we can be at a whole new level of thriving in our country if we were to pay attention to the effects of the deep beliefs and what then shows up in the body. We are dealing with a medical system that diagnoses at the physical symptom level only. Most of us who are listening right now know that by now. But beyond that, because our country, our culture is so geared towards looking at the physical and the external, as I've talked about in other shows, because of the dominant religious background that we have in our culture in the West, the Judeo-Christian Muslim religions, as opposed to, say, Buddhism or Taoism, which believes that there's a circulating chi or life force energy in everything alive, and then that is the Tao. That is how God shows up, how divinity shows up, as does basically the Hindu world. Then we're going to approach life differently. We're going to understand also consciousness. We're going to look at this life force energy and try and understand how it behaves. Just like in our religious institutions in the West, we've looked at how God behaves, supposedly, with the punishment thing, and then we confess and sins if we're in the Catholic Church, etc. So because of our Western religions and because of our Western science, based on and coming out of Catholicism, it's geared towards examining the outside. So we're missing a whole slew of the human existence, and I felt this and intuitively knew this by my third semester of being a psychology student as my first major as an undergraduate. That it was missing. Yeah, it was focused on the cognitive functions of the brain. It was focused on the physical mechanistic aspects of the brain and the memory recall and data recall, the functioning, the mechanics of the brain. But I wasn't hearing anything about the, even beyond the psychology of motivation with Maslow and the hierarchy of self-realization. I wasn't hearing anything about what makes a human being be alive and what motivates a human being to stay alive. What keeps us alive? How do we interact with this mysterious force? And what causes us to dream? Why do we dream? Those kinds of questions that are harder to answer. Psychology didn't touch because it's considered the hard problem in Western science. All of this I go into in my book, What If There Is Nothing Wrong? That seems to really be helping shift people, because after living in Asia for 10 years, and already having an understanding. I was already an energy healer when I went there. I had already been practicing yoga since college, but wasn't yet a certified teacher. I went to India when I lived in Asia to get certified. I went there because I wanted to help compound and make my energy healings better. I wanted to help compound what I was already flowing for the energy in the energy healing sessions. So I learned Qigong. I became a Qigong practitioner and a teacher, and learned about all the different ways to work with the subtle life force energy, because that was what I felt was missing, because that's also the Tao in Taoism. Wayne Dyer actually recently, one of his last 4 books or so, is talking about Taoism, for those of you who are Wayne Dyer fans from Hay House. And so the Tao is the Chinese way of working with divine life force energy, because it's both, listen to this, it's both energy for vitality and it's energy that's connected to divinity. And that's what is getting moved through acupuncture, and that's what is getting moved with energy healing, the kinds that I do anyway, that deal with the energy pathways in the body, the meridians, just like acupuncture does, to make sure that the chi is, or the prana, as it's called in the yogic world, is flowing throughout the body. What closes that down is the chakras. The chakras stay open and healthy or get closed down based on beliefs. That is the quintessence of the mind-body connection. It is the crossways, and it is the path to understanding, why do I have a physical malady? Cancer is even viewed as a symptom in the holistic mind-body connection. It's not viewed as an actual thing to treat only. It's viewed as a symptom of a bigger imbalance within a person's system based on some belief. If you are heavy and you have extra weight on you, what is that a metaphor for? Learn to see it symbolically. I am weighed down. Maybe you're weighed by all the extra stuff you're taking in from all the people around you, because you somehow, as a little child, learned that that's your role in your family. There's a bunch of beliefs that come along with why you would take on the negative stuff in the environment of your family. And there's not time enough to go into that here. Maybe I can do a whole radio show on that in the future, or you can contact me. Everybody's different is what I'm thinking right now, with also why that would happen. Maybe you feel weighed down by life because you don't want to be in your body, as I've already spoken to. So I started saying, what can we do about this? And I went into talking about working with the deep core musculature, Pilates and yoga. And I was talking about the Cobra pose. And then what did I go into? The power of our beliefs, because that is the mind-body connection. So we can strengthen and help and support our chakras from tools, more tools that I'm going to list now, and I listed already on the other chakra shows that I did last year, where you're doing yoga poses for them and you're working with the tones. Toning I do in my yoga and meditation classes I teach every night, because toning, I was just saying this to a client, I think it was 2 days ago, actually, was toning more than the colors, more than oils, more than any other tool I've ever heard suggested for chakras. Toning really attunes the chakras. That hawk is just flying directly over my head right now. It's an osprey, a fish hawk. Oh, God, it's so beautiful. So you can have a pen and paper out, or you can rewind this, whatever we say with digital MP3s or podcasts. We don't say rewind. What do? I don't even know what to call it anymore. Move the mouse over. Go back. How's that? And re-listen to this part. The root chakra's tone is ooh. When you tone, you do not want to tone to sound pretty. You're not singing in the choir. It's a guttural sound. I'm going to give you only the first three. If you tend to be empathic and have too big of a heart in a way, let me give you an example of that. I myself, coming out of teaching one day, in my second year teaching in the public school system locally here to Tampa, in St. Pete, Florida, before going international in the international school system, I was getting weekly treatments from my Reiki master. And she, at one point, said to me, I have to close your heart down. Your heart chakra is excessive right now. And I had just come from teaching junior high kids that day. And if I remember correctly, it was an especially challenging day. I was working with some intensive readers who had challenges with reading, some boys, and had to engage extra patience and compassion with them to understand why they were resistant to reading, and then to help them move beyond that resistance and help them learn to read. So she had to get my heart chakra balanced so it wasn't too far open. So I'll give you the heart chakra tone too, because again, as I said earlier, that can lead into not being able to draw boundaries because you feel so compassionate towards others that you don't. Another aspect to this, a third aspect to this too, is if you have this level of compassion, it can also be because you're just a spiritually advanced being or soul or anything along those lines, without going into a list. I think you know what I mean. You are spiritually advanced. You've always been directed towards the spiritual or what's beyond the everyday life experience. You're attracted by the magic or the mystery in life. And so you might also have your heart more naturally opened and sensing the connectivity of each of us. Part of what I said I wasn't going to go into is just this. If you've lived many lifetimes practicing spiritual practices like yoga and meditation, you've cultivated a soul that is more advanced and so therefore has a wider open heart because it knows experientially how we are each connected to each other. If you are someone like that, then that also may make you feel other people more than what's comfortable for you, and you might pack on extra weight to have more boundaries between you and others. So I'm also going to give you the heart chakra tone. To see how much there is to it, I'm like, as always, because there's so much to all of this. It's beautiful, and we can undo anything because we just need to work with the mind and the thoughts and to get to the educational level to understand the power behind that we can undo anything just by working with our thoughts and our consciousness and then the energy patterns that have developed in the body with the life force energy from energy healing to get rid of the subconscious blocks. I mean, we can undo anything, but to get people to understand that there is a mind-body connection, a host of education is needed. So I'm so excited because I love to turn people on to this. It's because the beauty that follows after the liberation, the freedom that people have, because they're not enslaved to some other outside force telling them, this is what you must do. This is the way that everybody who has pancreatic cancer has to do it. Or this is, you know what I mean? Like you listen, you get yourself set with your own beliefs, and we can undo it. You find a way to undo it with a person who works with consciousness, or me. But you can undo it. It is so exciting because the liberation and freedom that comes from that is a true empowerment and self-mastery. So it's clear pathways to self-mastery and self-empowerment and enlightenment or awakening. And it's totally likely now. It's not even possible anymore. The energies on our planet, the way that the human species is predicted to be evolving, I've talked about on many other shows, it's exactly what my book goes into, is to be in a great awakening. That's what we're doing right now. We're awakening to our spirituality and our connectivity. So those of us who have already been on the path for a long time, it's like instant manifestation of our thoughts and of what we're desiring. It's easier now, and it's going to continue to get easier. So if there's extra weight around you, it's also possibly because there's just baggage there. There's just density there. You just need to clear some emotional density. And because you're emotionally dense, meaning you stifle in your emotions, you don't speak them out with the fifth chakra. I'm going to end up giving you the tones for each one. And you suppress your feelings back down inside of you, and you possibly do that with food. So as I said on those food chakra, or in food addiction, from the chakras perspective, shows carbohydrates is frequently for the third chakra, or you're feeling inadequate or ashamed about yourself, or you're powerless to move forward or hopeless about moving forward, so you just keep eating carbohydrates. So you're packing on extra weight from a belief, from an emotional reaction to a belief or a thought that you have. I can't do that. Okay, let me just make myself feel better, buy this bread or buy this cake or buy this chocolate. It's not chocolate as much with the third chakra. So if you have a bunch of stuffed down emotions that you tend to ignore and just keep powering through and dealing with life on a day-to-day basis, that actually ends up as dense energy. And you need to match yourself energetically with your physical body. So you're going to have a physically dense body. Yeah. But you can clear it. So one of the ways to start is with the chakra tones. So here we go. The root is U. That's the grounder. The second chakra is O. Straight and even tone. You don't want to try and sing it. Like I said, if it's scratchy and you have pauses, go back to the root. And you go like, ooh, ooh, ooh. That means you're clearing through blockage. This ends up, when people are new to toning and yoga and they take my class, this always ends up being their favorite part of the class. That's really funny. So, ooh is the first. O is the second. A-W is the third. I'm going to clear that too. Here we go. You can do it with me at home or in your car. Inhaling. You want to let yourself go for as long as you can with each tone. You can. I have started. I've listened to one round for the same chakra, same tone. I've heard my students not be able to get to that clear notes. You've heard me be able to get to straight all the way through without any scratchiness, without any stopping and starting. And so we'll go back in and do it a second time and even a third time until they're clear. You also just gotten trained with me. You can feel the shift. I work with my chakras every single day, multiple times a day. You're in training up to my vibration, so you're getting cleared right now as I do this. So let's go back and do the root. Inhaling. Could hear the resonance with that second time through. The Tibetans say, and I consider the Tibetans the source on the planet for vibrational healing. They say that the human body at the chest and the head are cavities for vibrational healing. They're the ones who are, in my opinion, the makers also of the best bowls, the best sound healing bowls. Okay, that was first, second, and third. Ooh, O, Ah. Heart is A. Yeah, there is Hung. There is the seed mantras. Then there's Lam, Ram, Ham. There's those two. I go with the vowel sounds just because they seem to be the most powerful for the American audience who I work with the yoga classes, and they seem to be the most powerful with me too. There's also the tones, A, E, I, not the vowels, the tones up the scale of notes. There's also do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And the lower, obviously, are the root ones. Do is the root, up to the higher ones, which is the crown chakra. I find the most effective way are these vowel sounds. To question whoever was thinking that, and somehow I picked up on it. The heart. I don't know about you guys, but my psychicness, it wasn't hurting before. It was really on before, and because I'm in it every day dealing with my intuition in the energy healing sessions. But I tell you what, now after the December 21st alignment, I don't know about you guys, and feel free to email me and tell me about your experiences, but I find both myself and my clients are saying, and the psychicness is amazing now. I mean, it's just, I'm knowing when, right before somebody's texting me, I can feel it come through, and it, pop, it's that person. I don't mean I can feel it come through. I feel the person all of a sudden. And then I know why within a moment because of the phone call or the text. Okay, so anyway, now going to the vowel sound for the heart chakra. A, inhaling. Do you guys feel that like tin or resonance? I use the word tin. I don't know why. Maybe it helps you understand. There is this hawk consistently flying over my head during this radio show, building a nest in a billboard. There is also one last likely leaf, and the hawk building the nest in the billboard makes me think of the spiritual becoming the material and the material becoming the physical part and the material becoming the spiritual. In days past, I'm not going into the 5th, 6th, and 7th. Those are the key ones for why we would have extra weight. You can look up the rest. In days past, people who were materialistic were on the physical plane. They were doing life from buying stuff, caring about glamour, caring about their looks, caring about their possessions, and not necessarily caring about spirituality. I'm going hardcore here. I know that these are stereotypes, but I'm trying to show a contrast to make a point. Please forgive me, no offenses meant, because I know it's not just black and white. Then there were the spiritual people, who were maybe the nuns in monasteries, washing floors, maybe the monks praying and sweeping the floors, and there were the folk healers, the people who were burned at the stake, the people who were living minimalistically, simply, and were having a sense of connection to the earth, like pagans and Wiccans, and the people who were still having a connection to the divine, to the psychic forces in life, to the more magical forces in life. Those are actually quite balanced, those last group, the Wiccans, pagans. But what I'm trying to get at is, in today's age, it seems like everything's getting turned upside down. People are wanting to step out of the material pursuit. They're realizing the stress it induces on them as we open up more and more to, yes, stress actually physically affects the body in numerous ways. I go into that in my book, too, because I really blast open the host of chronic diseases that we medicate for in our country and how they're all proven to be stress-related. It's just not frequently... You know what they're called? They're called the diseases of affluence. Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. What if there's nothing wrong? Same in my book. The diseases before the diseases of affluence are the diseases from sanitation issues. Totally predictable. Cholesterol and blood pressure are two of the most easily managed, by the way, through daily lifestyle choices. Yep. So, living on the material, physical plane keeps us focused on the physical, which would mean maybe possibly pursuit of women, pursuit of men, more actively pursuit of glamour, like I already said, in pursuit of riches, and having, in the stereotype, a disconnect from the inner self. And then the people on the yogic path or the people who are spiritual having a disconnect from the material self. That is part of, as I open the show with the description of that story of me looking around in a workshop led by Carolyn Mace with a bunch of metaphysical people, wondering why a high percentage of them, this is the mid-90s, were heavy. Because we have frequently associated in the past that we couldn't be both. It was one or the other. And we're in a time right now where all of that's getting flipped upside down. Spiritual people are having money now. The materialistic people are looking for spirituality. And it's the same thing with the body. You don't need to be heavy to be grounded. You don't need to be heavy to be spiritual. You can have a good, tight body that's healthy with a strong core and be spiritual. It's not the either-or paradigm anymore. If you go into the gym or if you work on your body, it doesn't mean that you're vain and you're materialistic and you're not spiritual. It's the mind, body, spirit trinity. Yeah. So I also know that one of my clients today we were working on still those beliefs of I am proving something about my level of spirituality by not choosing money. It's also, quite possibly, I am proving something by not being thin about my spirituality. Yeah, blessings.